This is a Lee Classic turret press that I borrowed from Soggy Saddlebags to have a little personal time with it. I've never owned one of these presses before, but I've recommended them to a number of new shooters, new reloaders, and thought I would do another video. Vaquero Kid was kind enough to take a video showing his setup with the Classic turret, and he had some aftermarket accessories on there that don't come on the standard press, so I thought we'd run one stock and see how that goes and talk about a couple of complaints that I've heard about this press. So as you may already know, the Lee Classic turret press is obviously a turret press that is auto indexing, which means you have the capability of, as you cycle the press, that indexing rod will cause the turret to advance to the next station. So in that sense, it's similar to a progressive press, and you only have one shell holder, so one case at a time being operated on, so that every pull of the handle gives you a separate operation on the same case. And the advantage there over the single stage press is you're not handling, picking up, inserting, and taking out the same cartridge case multiple times, which is a big time saver. This one is set up with the Lee 4-die deluxe pistol die set, which is perfect for this press. For one thing, it gives you the ability to charge your cases, put powder in the cases right on the press, and that is done through what Lee calls the powder through expander die. So this die does double duty. It expands your case neck and expands and flares the mouth if needed, and it is with lead bullets. And it also has a hollow center through which the powder can be dispensed. There are a couple of ways you can do it. If you buy just the press and you don't buy a powder measure with it, you can insert, this is a Lee powder funnel that fits exactly in the top of the powder through expander die as it comes out of the box. So if you're doing this, on a shoestring, you can simply get the funnel and dip or measure out the individual charges. But where this really comes into its own is when you use a case-activated powder measure. Now this is the Lee Auto Disc measure. It has a disc in here with a number of holes, different sizes, molded into it, and you set that dial, if you will, to the charge hole that's appropriate for the powder and the amount that you want to dispense. And it's fairly foolproof, I think, and it's been around for a number of years. Lee also makes an auto drum powder measure, and I have one of those that I use sometimes on my Hornady press, and this is a rotating drum measure that gives you a little screw adjustment here. You can get that exactly where you want it, and that I found that to be a pretty reliable measure. And you can get, either one will fit on that powder through expander die. You can get the one that you want. I'm not as familiar with the auto disc, but it's been working fine for me so far. Now, the other thing I want to mention is I've heard some people, one complaint is, well, the priming system on this press interferes with the dies or with the powder measure. Well, if you're going to use something like they're going to use, this is what they call the safety prime system, yes, it will get in the way unless you buy an inexpensive auto disc riser. And this is this piece right here. It screws into the top of the powder through expander die, and then the powder measure, either one you have chosen, will screw into that, and it gets the measure up out of the way of the safety prime if you choose to use that, and above the level of the dies as well. So that works really well. And I've heard complaints about the safety prime system that people say, I don't like it. It throws primers out. I can't get it adjusted. Well, I've played with this a little bit on somebody else's press when I helped them set it up. And it's really important, there's a little bracket here, that you get this aligned properly. And if you do, it seems to work really well. I've seen some videos of other fixes if your unit is, you know, throwing out primers, but so far so good on this one. Now, what I'm going to do here is to demonstrate with a pretty much, you know, out of the box system how it operates, and with showing depriming and repriming on the press. So now some people prefer, regardless of the brand of press that they own, to prime off the press. That's fine. I've had good luck priming on the press, and it saves case handling and all that. So generally I do prime on the press without a problem. So we're going to demonstrate that. So what we'll do is begin by putting a fired case, and these are just fired 38 special cases, nothing special. And we're going to run it up into the number 1 die, which is the sizing decapping die. When I get to the bottom of that stroke, it kicks the fired primer out. And now's the time to load a new primer from the safety prime into this little cedar cup here. You just press it forward, click, and it's in there. So now when I lower the ram, that will rock into place and the primer will be seated. And you can feel it going in. You can pull the thing out and check it and make sure that there's not a problem. I'm still getting used to this press, so that safety prime, I'm learning to get out of its way. Not that it's in my way, but it just drops in. Okay, so now that we have indexed the press, the turret has rotated to station 2, where we have our powder through expander die, and as you go through the stroke on that, it activates the powder measure and has moved the measure so that it has dispensed the powder that I measured. And I checked this on a scale to make sure that it's throwing what I wanted it to throw, and it is, so we're good. The next step then is to pick up a bullet, and these are bullets by Scarlett's 125 grain 38 no groove bullets. These are great. You can adjust your overall cartridge length if need be for your rifle, and that die will simply push that bullet into the appropriate depth. And you can set it with that top knob if you want it a little bit longer, say. And then the final step is to go into the factory crimp die, which will take that you know, bell out of the case mouth, and then it'll actually squeeze the outside dimensions of the case back to sort of factory spec. So if you had something a little cockeyed or bulge, that usually will iron it out. So there's a completed cartridge. So let's run through that one more time without a bunch of chit chat and see how it works. Well, when I pick that up, there we go. Whoop, forgot to put a bullet in. I'm just getting used to this press, and so you develop a rhythm for it when you learn it. All right, so completed cartridge. And how long did that take? Let's try one more time, see if we can just avoid all those issues. Station 1. Just puts a primer. See, sometimes it'll get a little hitchy, and it'll just kind of usually self-align. All right, and you can check it and make sure it's fine. Don't want a high primer. There's a fire cartridge, and you saw I only picked up the case one time, put it in the press when it was done. And if you do what Vaquero Kid did and order Inline Fabrications upgrade kit, you will get a rod that makes the turret go in the opposite direction, and there's a little rubber finger on the rod that will kick the completed cartridge rather into a bin, so you only have to handle that cartridge case one time. So again, pretty simple. There's only one thing going on at a time, and yet it's a lot more efficient than the single stage press. And there is a a store in Indiana called Kempf, K-E-M-P-F, gun shop, I believe it's called, actually run by cowboy shooters, and they sell Lee will sell you a kit that has dies, powder measure, and then other stuff that you probably would not need for loading pistol. The Kemp store has a bundle that they put together that gives you the press, the dies, and the cartridge that you select, the powder measure, the safety prime system, and a couple of other things. And when I saw on their website, that was about $300, which is a pretty good deal. So hopefully you found this to be instructive, and we'll see you on the range.